Trump uses white South Africans as a warning example. Good evening, I'm Sal Pierre, and welcome to Sal's World News. Tonight, we turn our attention to a controversial narrative being pushed by President Donald Trump regarding South Africa. His latest claims that white South Africans are facing severe discrimination and persecution under the country's black-led government. But how much of this is fact, and how much is political fear-mongering? Let's break it down. At the heart of this issue is Trump's repeated assertion that white South Africans, particularly Afrikaners, are under attack economically, politically, and even physically. His administration recently signed an executive order granting Afrikaners refugee status in the U.S. while simultaneously cutting off aid to South Africa. Trump and his allies warned that America could suffer the same fate if efforts to promote diversity are not curtailed. But let's take a step back. Do the facts support this narrative? While white South Africans represent only about 7% of the population, they still control at least half of the country's land. Despite Trump's claims of widespread violence against white farmers, police statistics do not indicate that they are more vulnerable than any other group. And when it comes to economic standing, white South Africans still remain far better off than the country's black majority. Nonetheless, Trump and his supporters continued to use South Africa as a cautionary tale for their own political gain. The narrative resonates with the American far-right, reinforcing fears of anti-white discrimination and the supposed dangers of diversity policies. Conservative influencers like Elon Musk and Tucker Carlson have amplified these claims, portraying South Africa as a failed state due to its efforts to correct historical injustices. South Africa, for its part, has worked to address the lingering inequalities of apartheid through policies aimed at land redistribution and economic empowerment. One of the most debated measures is the government's ability to reclaim land in the public interest, sometimes without compensation. While this law has not yet been enforced, Trump and his allies paint it as an aggressive attack on white landowners. Recently, tensions escalated when Secretary of State Marco Rubio expelled South Africa's ambassador, Ebrahim Rasool, calling him a race-baiting politician. Meanwhile, Trump has welcomed Afrikaner activists to Washington, dubbing them civil rights leaders and positioning himself as their protector on the world stage. Critics argue that Trump's stance is less about actual concern for South Africans and more about rallying his base ahead of the U.S. elections. His administration has consistently prioritized policies that cater to white nationalist sentiments, whether defending Confederate symbols, dismissing racial sensitivity training, or now spotlighting white South Africans as victims. However, not all Afrikaners are embracing Trump's offer. Many consider South Africa their home and reject the idea of fleeing. Instead, they seek internal political solutions rather than U.S. intervention. So, what's really at play here? Trump's rhetoric about South Africa is less about the reality on the ground and more about reinforcing a political agenda. By drawing parallels between South Africa's past and America's present, he is using fear to shape policy and perception. For now, the world watches as Trump continues to push this divisive narrative. Will it gain traction in his re-election bid? Only time will tell. But one thing remains clear: facts and politics often don't go hand in hand. But here is one place within South Africa that is not being mentioned: Orania. Yes, Orania, part of the country of South Africa. Orania has been making headlines for decades. It's a place often described as the last outpost of apartheid. Orania is a self-sustaining, whites-only settlement in the country's northern Cape. But how does such a town exist in a democratic South Africa? And what does it say about the country's ongoing struggles with race and identity? Let's break it down. Orania, founded in 1991, is home exclusively to Afrikaners, the descendants of Dutch settlers. The town controls its own banking system, prints its own money, and governs itself with little interference from the South African state. Entry into Orania requires meeting a strict set of criteria, the most notable being that residents must be white. All jobs, from farm work to restaurant service, are performed by white people, a striking contrast to the rest of South Africa, where black citizens make up the majority workforce. Yet, Orania's residents insist they are not racist. Instead, they claim to be preserving their Afrikaner culture and autonomy. The town's origins trace back to the family of Hendrik Verwoerd, the architect of apartheid, further solidifying its image as a relic of the past. A bust of Verwoerd still stands in Orania, a stark reminder of the ideology that once governed South Africa. Meanwhile, Nelson Mandela, the leader who dismantled apartheid, is far from revered in this community. Residents argue that his policies led to the decline of the country, distancing themselves from the national narrative of reconciliation. Despite its exclusivity, Orania operates within the legal framework of South Africa's constitution, which permits self-determination for cultural groups. However, the town's ambitions extend beyond autonomy. Leaders in Orania have openly discussed establishing an Afrikaner Republican independent white state within South Africa. As the world debates whether Orania is an innocent cultural enclave or an extension of apartheid-era segregation, one thing remains clear: South Africa's history still casts a long shadow over its present. With discussions about race, land ownership, and economic justice still fueling political discourse, the existence of Orania poses difficult questions about the nation's future. For now, Orania remains an anomaly, a town legally isolated from the diverse and complex fabric of modern South Africa. But with its growing population and increasing self-sufficiency, its next steps could have far-reaching implications. That's all for tonight on Sal's World News. I'm Sal Pierre, signing off. Thank you for watching. Stay informed, stay sharp, and question everything. Please don't forget to subscribe to the channel. Like and share our videos. We appreciate your support so much.